Hello, hello. Hey, everybody, it's Ron here, and I think this thing is working. I'm going to try it out anyway. So, guys, it's 9:30 on Central Standard Time on Wednesday morning, and if you are able to get into this, would love to share some ideas with you really quickly. So, in the New Home Niche Blueprint group, as you guys know, or maybe have heard me talk about, the whole premise of the group is to teach realtors the opportunity that's in new construction and then how to access that opportunity, how to be able to step into this. And it's all, none of it is theoretical. It's all learned either from my experience or now experience of really hundreds of other realtors around the United States. There is an enormous opportunity in residential new construction. Hey, one second though, I'm gonna open up another page because I can't see any comments here. It's kind of weird the way Facebook has this set up, and so I want to be able to see any comments that you guys have. If you got any questions or anything, as I get into this, and I apologize. It seems like the technology is forever changing, isn't it? It's just like constant. And I'm excited for the opportunity to meet with you guys and to hopefully give some value and stuff. But it's definitely still a learning for me. Okay, I think if anybody comments, I think that I can see it now. Hopefully, so. If you're here right now, would love to say hi to you. I'm trying something new. I'm using Facebook Live instead of StreamYard or instead of Zoom. Try to use Zoom, and so we're trying it with StreamYard today or with Facebook Live, and we'll see how that goes. But I wanted to meet with you for a few minutes today, and this is going to be a pretty quick training today, and share some ideas with you that I believe are fundamentally important to starting a new construction niche. One of the things that really set off my it kind of set off my understanding of what was going on early on when I started to discover that there's a big gap in new construction, and the way buyers are wanting to buy and the way builders are wanting to sell and what we're able to provide or not able to provide as realtors. And one of the very first things that I saw as a realtor with Coldwell Banker and specializing in new construction was, that I could not find many of the builders, and I could not find many of the neighborhoods. And I'll tell you just a little bit about that. I'm not going to go into great detail, but it kind of sets the stage for what I'm about to share with you. One of the things the early on that I discovered is that many of the new home neighborhoods where somebody can build, they're not listed with the realtor. They're not on the MLS. That doesn't mean that it's a bad neighborhood. It just means it's not listed. Sometimes, and there's a lot of different reasons for it. Sometimes it's a production builder that's like, I'm not sure I'm going to get that much value out of it. I think people can find us on their own. Sometimes it's a smaller developer that maybe doesn't know that they need to list or that they should list, or they're not convinced of the value. Many times it's neighborhoods that are kind of played out. They're not completely. I mean, you go out there, and once you discover it, you drive out and you see a developer sign. You can see sometimes developer signs laying in the dirt, and but you drive into this community and you're like, wow, this is a nice community. There may only be a half dozen lots left, but it's certainly a place that somebody would want to consider when they're thinking about where to build their house. And by the way, if you don't know, hey, Sarah, I can see you, Sarah. Hey, if you don't know, the very first question that the buyer, when somebody is moving into the decision mode on new construction, right? The very first thing that they need to identify for themselves, to their satisfaction, not ours, not the builders, but their satisfaction, the very first question is where? What are my options on where I can build? And when they want to, they generally have an idea of what they want to build. They usually know. They've been dreaming about it for a few years, maybe several years. but they have an idea of the floor plan that they're looking for. And a lot of times, we think as realtors that, well, the first question they're going to have is who they're going to build with. That's not it. The first question that they have to answer for themselves is the question of where. And then they get on to, once they see their options on where, okay, there's 10 different neighborhoods that meet my criteria of what I'm looking to build. And all this has to do with quality of life, and it has to do with the community. So it's the context of the house. It's not the house itself. If you think about the MLS is a database of the structures, right? What we're creating with Hoodle, and when it comes to new construction buyers, what they need is a database of the where question, not the what question, and not the who question. They don't start with, generally, they're not starting with, well, we want to build with, Toll Brothers or Pulte or anybody else, or John Smith Builders. Maybe they do. They might have some ideas, but they always want to know their options. But the very first question is where. And here's what I discovered. And I'm going to kind of fly through this because I know you guys are busy and we've all got a lot of stuff going on today. But the first question is where. And here's the problem. When I started drilling down into the where question, what are the neighborhoods? I found out there's a lot of neighborhoods that are not listed. They're not listed. And in our market at the time, when I first began to discover this, it was to the tune of about 65% of the new home neighborhoods were not actually on the MLS. And don't get me started on the number of actual lots, but the neighborhood themselves, there was nothing on the MLS about this neighborhood, but it was buildable. I could drive into it. I could see, wow, this is cool. Sometimes it was something I would like, sometimes it wasn't, but that really doesn't matter. It is a buildable place. It's some place that somebody would want to consider building. Sarah says, it seems like mine ask where they can build under a certain price point. Exactly, Sarah, that's exactly right. So, they're thinking about things like, well, they've got a price in mind, and that's probably where they start. And then, after that, when they want to know their price point, then they want to know other quality of life issues, like I want something that's near a library, or I want something that's near the airport or near the highway, or I want a horse stable in the neighborhood or nearby, or I want a tennis court for our kid who is becoming an Olympian, Olympics pro or something. So it's all about quality of life and context. It's about and I always think of it with new construction, it's like, we always hear real estate as location. Well, it's LX10. It's like location on steroids. They want to know what are my options on where. And the problem is that about 65% of the neighborhoods in many markets they're not listed on the MLS. And so we got a problem from moment one, okay? Now I'm gonna kind of push back through this and get onto the real topic, get onto the rest of the topic. Sarah says, price is number one, school system is number two. Absolutely, those are the number one and two things. But many of the neighborhoods never make it to the MLS. So there's a problem because very often our first go-to is I'm going to go look on the MLS. For what? I'm going to look for active residential lots. I'm going to look for construction that's under a year old, or if your particular MLS allows for it, new construction. Sometimes MLSs have that, sometimes they don't, or a spec home. So there's different ways, and every MLS is a little bit different. None of them are hugely accurate. So there's a lot of missing information. So what I started to discover, though, was that, and as we got into this problem and we started to get invited to come speak on this and other topics related to what we're doing with Hoodle, and we'd go to other HBAs, and every place we went, every place, to a city, which was mostly right around the Midwest, but every place we would go, we found so much fragmentation of the baseline information. I'm not even talking about the details. I'm just talking about the baseline information. That I could talk to any realtor or the HBA themselves or the builders or or brokerage or the board of realtors, anybody, even economic development and zoning and city planners. And if I had, half dozen basic questions, there was nobody who could answer them with any degree of accuracy, not even close. I mean, generally they're off by a factor of, I think I'm saying this right, a factor of 10. In other words, and so I'm going to give you the questions. I'm going to show you how we're going to find them out really quickly, okay? And then if you need more information on it, reach out. Unfortunately, for today, I have a very carefully prepared slide presentation that I can't do, I guess, with Facebook Live. I'm used to using StreamYard. I thought I was going to be able to use Zoom, and it ran into technical problems this morning with Zoom. So anyway, so I'm just going to tell you these, and if you want more information or if you want the slides or something, reach out. We'll dive into it a little bit deeper, and I'll show you how to do this stuff. But, when I started to go into these communities, and we did this in Chicago and St. Louis and other places around Illinois and Quad Cities and Indianapolis and Nashville, and it was always the same, always, that nobody seemed to know basic information. Now, why is this important? And I'm going to tell you what the basic, and I think there's 5, maybe 6 pieces of data that if I were starting in new construction today, I would want to find out these 5 or 6 pieces of information, and you can find them out. It takes a little bit of homework, but you can do it in an afternoon. And if you get stuck, I can help you too. So, but there are 5 or 6 pieces of information that, from a business standpoint, a business planning standpoint, we would call this the total addressable market. What is the total addressable market, or the TAM, for your market? And what we want to find out as quickly as possible, early in our growth or establishing our game plan as a specialist in new construction, we want to find out the size and the scope of my new construction market, your new construction market. And again, every place that we've gone, when we've asked even baseline questions about these 5 or 6 things, nobody seems to have a handle on it. Nobody. This is one of several reasons why it's very important for you to get these pieces of information. So I'm going to tell you the 5 or 6 pieces of information. I'd like you to write them down. I can't show you the slides. I wish I could, but I'll tell you what they are, and then we'll jump into, okay, how am I going to find that, Ron? What's up? So at a high level, here are some things that I think that every realtor, if you're going to specialize in new construction, you need to get a handle on this, okay? And it's not going to stop there. This is only where it begins, okay? 5 or 6 pieces of information. What do I want to know? Number 1, I want to know, and please write these down, and we'll jump back into them in just a second, but how many new home neighborhoods are there in your market? How many new home neighborhoods exist where somebody can build in your greater market? If we're talking Columbus, I'm not talking about Columbus proper. I'm talking about the larger Columbus. I'm talking about the metro, or Orlando, or Nashville, or Dallas, Fort Worth, or any place. How many new home neighborhoods are there? Okay, and that's very important to know. If I were a buyer, I would, and as a fiduciary and a guide within new construction, this is something that you need to know so that you can be able to say to somebody, well, in the Chicagoland area, for instance, last time we researched this, in the Chicagoland area, there were 3,770 new home neighborhoods, roughly, give or take several hundred, okay? Nobody's really databased it. And so this is problematic. If we don't know how many there are, we certainly don't know how many there are that meet the criteria of Mr. and Mrs. Jones, right? And ultimately, what they want to know is what works for me, what works for us. They don't just want to know what's on the MLS that is easy for us to find. Yeah, let's just go look on the MLS and find the 40% that are listed, or the 30% that are listed. We won't worry about the other 60%. That's not the way people think. That is not the way we buy, right? When Cindy and I were buying a vacuum cleaner here a couple years ago, and I don't know why I always go back to this example, but it's a couple $100. I was on the web. I was researching the difference between the Dyson and the Shark and everything else. Guess what? That is the nature of consumers today. They research. You guys know this. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. We research, we go to the web. 100% of the time, we're going to the web. And the bigger and the more complex the purchase, the more that we want to research our options. The more risk that's involved, the more we want to know our options. Let me tell you something. There is no bigger perception and feeling of risk. There is no bigger, more complex purchase that anyone will ever undertake than building a new home. It's more complex than buying a pre-owned home. And so with the pre-owned homes, at least we have the advantage that I can go to the MLS, right? You can, anybody can, or the buyers can go to the web and they can go to Zillow or Realtor or many, many other portals, and they can do a quick search and go, we want to spend $400,000 to $450,000. I'm going to live in a 15-mile radius of blah, blah, blah. And or if I want to do that for them, it's very simple for me to go and, click, 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 pull up a report, spit out a report and go, here, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, here's the 37 houses that meet your criteria. Well, let's narrow it down to 5, right? And so that's pretty simple. And we are used to doing that. And guess what? They're used to it too. And that is the way that they want to purchase. But when it comes to new construction, it's a different buyer journey. It's a different set of questions, different set of problems. And we don't have access to going to the MLS with any degree of certainty and saying, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, here are your 37 options on where you can build. Doesn't exist. I wish it did, but it doesn't. But I tell you what, that problem and many other problems that we've discovered within the new home buyer journey are your opportunity. They're really your ticket to becoming a thought leader and becoming the go-to that everybody is referring people to. Okay, so what are the 5 or 6 pieces of information? I'm going to list those out, and then we're going to talk about a little bit about how you find them, and then we'll call it a wrap on this session today. By the way, guys, thank you for being here. Thanks so much. I know your time is valuable, and this technology is tricky for me. I'd much rather be talking to you over a cup of coffee or beer and talking person to person, but I guess we're all adjusting to it. So thank you for being here, and let me know if there are particular problems that you have, questions that you want addressed, because every Wednesday at 9:30 Central Standard Time, I'm going to start coming in and doing a training session every week. And I want to make sure that it's on point with the stuff that you guys want to talk about. But, all right, back to our topic here. In order to get a clear handle on my new construction market and what's available, there are 5 or 6 pieces of information that you need to find, and you can find very, very quickly. Here they are. Okay, number 1, I want to know how many neighborhoods. Again, just high level. We're going to start with an estimate of how many new home neighborhoods, how many locations are there where somebody can build. Okay. Number 2, I want to know how many builders are there in my market. I'm not talking about my city. I'm talking about the metro market. Why? Because most people are not saying, well, I want to live in this city, but not that city. Maybe some do. I want to live in this county, not that county. But mostly when they're considering building, I want to know my options on the larger community, within a 20-mile radius or 30-mile radius or whatever it is that they want. Sarah, hang on a second. I think there's a little bit of delay here. Hey, Linda, I see you. Sarah says, seems like mine asks where they can build. Okay, I got that. Yeah, give me your feedback here, guys, as I run through this stuff. But the first question is that I want to know, that I'd like you guys to find out, and I'm recommending you find out, is how many neighborhoods are in my metro market where somebody can build. Second question is, how many builders are there in our metro market that somebody can build with? Okay. Now, here's the problem. Here's one of the problems. when we've had this conversation before, not us, but when I've had this conversation with brokerages, with HBAs, with the Home Builders Association in different markets, with realtors in different markets, with the board of realtors, nobody really seems to have a handle on it very well. But it's findable. It's not impossible to find. It's not even that difficult to get a high level number. I'm going to show you how. But the second thing we need to know is, how many neighborhoods, how many builders are there? And what we can't do is just go, well, let's see. I can go click, 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 and I can pull them up on the MLS. I can see right here on the MLS that there's, 40 builders or 50 builders or whatever that number is, because that number is not an accurate representation of what's available to the buyers. Now, I've had it happen. I'm not picking on anybody. I don't think this person's in the group, but I won't mention names. But there was. I will share a story though. There was, and I've had things like this happen many, many times. And you guys don't have time for the stories, but I'll give you an example. We were invited to come meet with a brokerage. Right, we go to a distant city, big city. We're meeting with a brokerage, and I began to talk about some of this stuff. And I said, it's a problem that we as realtors, and so this was a realtor brokerage, and the owners of the brokerage were there, and it was a round table discussion. There was probably 8 or 10 people, and me and Cindy, and we're explaining what we're doing and why this is important. And one of the realtors pipes up and says, "Hey, I'm a new construction specialist." Awesome. That is awesome. I am so glad to meet you, And he said, "I can tell you exactly how many neighborhoods there are in our market. I can tell you exactly how many builders there are in our market." And okay, all right, I could be wrong, and I'm, I don't claim any, biblical truth on this. I mean, I'm learning, but I've never seen it before. And he said to me, there are 362 new home neighborhoods in our market. Oh, okay. So now I knew I had a problem, and I wasn't sure what to say about it because I didn't want him to lose face, and I was feeling a little confronted here. But it's like I've already done the research, and I knew that there were over 1,400 new home neighborhoods in this gentleman's market. And because we figured out at least how to start to get an idea of what they are. And he said there's 362 or 365. So we went ahead and had the meeting, and get into the meeting a little bit further, and we're talking about it. And another realtor piped up and said, wait a second, Hoodle is different. No, this is different than what you're talking about. And sure enough, I mean, he did have a spreadsheet. He had a spreadsheet of a lot of the neighborhoods where somebody could build. And then later into the conversation, I think Cindy says, well, wait a second, and we try not to be offensive, we try not to confront. We said, our data shows that there's probably more like around 1,200 to 1,400 new home neighborhoods in your market. And he said, oh, well, I only sell production. And I was like, okay. He said, I don't like messing with custom or semi-custom. I don't like dealing with small builders. I only deal with production builders. So production builders, there's 360 whatever neighborhoods. And I'm like, you know what? This is wrong. That's just wrong. If you're telling buyers, these are your only options, Mr. and Mrs. Buyers, because that's what's suitable for me, this is problematic, okay? So anyway, we need to find out the number of neighborhoods. Secondly, we need to find out the number of builders. And it's not just the production builders. Now, I don't have anything, there's good and bad in any type of, it's a double-edged sword no matter what you do. And what fits for one buyer is not necessarily what's going to fit for another buyer. Sometimes that buyer wants custom, sometimes they want semi-custom, sometimes they want production. There's not a right or wrong about it. There's only, are we being a guide and a fiduciary to the buyer and really putting together a good, simple way to be able to show them their options to where they can make their right choices, right? So first thing is we're going to find out number of neighborhoods. Secondly, number of builders. The third is number of buyers. And, I can see that we got a few people on here. And I'd love to hear if you know And I'm, again, there's not a right or wrong about this. We're all just trying to grow through this process, add more value, become thought leaders, and become fiduciaries and guides to the builder, to the developer, and to the buyer in new construction. And so the third thing we need to know is how many new construction buyers. Now, on this one, I'm not going to show you how to do it. There is a way to do it, and if you want, I'll show you afterwards, but without being able to provide you links and stuff, it's a little bit challenging. But there are a couple different organizations, the U.S. Census Bureau, and the other one is called U.S. Housing Authority, I believe. And I've got links to these where you can go in and you can actually download. And it's tweaky. You got to figure out how to do it. And but they have the data city by city of how many new construction permits are being pulled, and how many starts are being created, and how many new constructions sold. Now apart from that, I don't think there's a very good way, because, and that one's not even perfect, but if we go to the MLS, then all we're seeing there is new construction solds where there's a realtor involved, okay? And so that doesn't show the rest of it. But we want to find out how many new construction buyers are. And further, what we want to find out is how many were there last year, how many the year before. So is it trending up? Is it trending down? Now, I can say, well, I don't really need to know that. That's beyond the scope of, who would want to know that? You do. Okay, because when you begin to understand these things, here's what's going to happen to you, okay? When you start to get a grasp on these things that I'm sharing with you, and they're findable. This is not rocket science, okay? We figured out ways to do it. I can show you how to do it. Let's see. How can I get the link? Lucy says, how can I get the link? Lucy, I'll find the link and I'll provide it to you after we get done, okay? I'll put it in the comments section, all right? Or message me. If there's something else that I didn't answer, direct message me, and I'll give you the link, okay? But when you begin to understand these basic numbers, and I'm not even talking about how to build a house or what R value is in the windows or any of that. I'm talking about very baseline stuff here. But when you begin to understand this, here's what happens. Number one, you begin talking about new construction different from all the other realtors in your market, because they don't know either. You begin planning and doing your goal setting different than all your competitors, because for the first time, and you are one of the first that is going to have a handle on this, and it changes the way you're going after it. When you find out, and I had a conversation with somebody, a couple months ago in a big city. I'm not going to mention the city because I don't know if they're in this group or not, but I have these conversations all the time where I'll talk to a realtor and I'll say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Realtor, how many builders are there in your market? And it is not at all unusual for a realtor to tell me, I think there's 22. And it's like, nope. It's more closer to 2,200, but they're thinking about the ones that are top of mind awareness. Well, I know about Toll Brothers, I know about Pulte, I know about Lennar, I know about DR. There's nothing wrong with those companies at all. That may be the exact solution that your buyer needs, but you can't assume it, because if you do, then we're not being a fiduciary, we're not being a guide, we're not providing much value, we're just doing what's easy for us, right? So if I want to provide more value, if I want to differentiate and clearly become the go-to realtor for my market for new construction, I better start learning the market. So the first thing we're going to learn is the market. So here's the numbers again. The neighborhoods, the builders, the number of permits. And there are a couple of different ways to find out the number of new construction buyers in your market. And when I start to do this, and I'll tell you what I'll do. Lucy. I need to update this anyway. So I'm going to update this and I will share it with anybody that wants it, okay? I will share with you the exact numbers for your market and I'll show you the trend line, okay, for your general market, okay? Was there 10% more? Was there 5% less from this year to this year to this year? And I'll do a 5 year, okay, the last 5 years that I'll pull together. And so I'll show you the trend line. When you begin understanding this stuff, you start, the way the builders and the developers and the buyers perceive you is completely different than what they're hearing from all the other realtors who are going, I don't know, 22 builders we can choose from. I think there's 100 neighborhoods when there's 1,400. This is powerful stuff. So number 3, we want to know how many buyers there are. Here's the last couple that I'm going to give you, and then I'll show you a couple resources. I'll share with you a couple resources and how to find this stuff out on your own if you don't want my help. Okay. By the way, I'm not charging for this. I mean, I'm going to do it because I love you guys, and I'll show you some other resources that we found. But the 4th number that I want to know, that I want you to know, and this one's a very simple one. This is probably the easiest one to find out. But how many realtors are there in your market? So what do we got here? We got how many neighborhoods, how many builders, and we're going to build on all this. All this goes, you start to build a database, and you start to dive deeper into these different databases, and you very quickly differentiate yourself. I promise you this, when you start to move down this path, very quickly, people would be going, how'd you find this out? I've never had another realtor that's told me this. Even the builders don't know. The Home Builders Association doesn't know. Try it. Go to your HBA and say and I'm not picking on anybody. It's just, it is what it is. It's nobody's fault. It's where it is. And we could just skirt the issue and go, well, here's 12 neighborhoods, here's 20 builders, whatever. Or we can get serious about this, add incredible value, and very quickly, all of your competition goes by the wayside. Fast. Because you are the only one that really is speaking the truth about your market. Okay? So, builders, neighborhoods, buyers. 4th one is, how many realtors are there in your market? Not in some, and I know a lot of MLSs, a lot of metro markets, there may be more than one board of realtors. Okay? You need to find out the total number of all of it. Okay? That's probably the simplest one. Here's the 5th one. And this is kind of like a sub number, right? So this getting into a little bit more detail, but I think I put it down as one of the top 5 numbers. They need to figure out to know your total addressable market. So you begin to see where you fit, who you want to go after, how you want to go after them, how you're going to provide more value to these buyers, these builders, and these developers, right? Here's the 5th number. How many of those realtors are actually doing new construction? How many realtors? Now, I'm not talking about the average realtor, because the average realtor in every market, and we've studied this for 25 markets, more than that, but we've looked at Dallas and Houston and Austin and Orlando and Tampa and Detroit and Grand Rapids and other markets. And in every market that I've studied, I will go into the MLS and I'll search for all the new constructions sold in a given year. All new constructions sold in a given year. And here's what I find over and over and over. It happens everywhere. That if there were 3,000 new constructions properties sold in a given market in a given year, almost all of those were one new construction, one realtor, one new construction, one realtor. And you can just go through the spreadsheet. The whole spreadsheet's like that. And then in every market, there are 5 or 10 or 20 realtors who get it, and they figured this stuff out, and they're cleaning up. They're doing 30, 40, 50, 60 new home transactions. Now, if the average realtor is doing one new home transaction a year, I'm not picking on anybody. It's just we have to ask ourselves, am I a new construction specialist? Okay, is that enough? I do one new construction a year. Is that enough to say I specialize in new construction? Here's the thing. 99.9% of realtors are not specialized in new construction. The opportunity is enormous. The number of buyers who want new construction is skyrocketing. This year, it's gone up to, I think last I read, it's like over 1.6 million people across the United States are building or buying a new construction property. I believe it's over 1.6 million. The average in a given year is around 1 million, give or take. Um, and um, and the number of realtors who specialize in new construction is far, far less than 1%. There are very few realtors who are doing more than one new home transaction a year. What I'm doing is, and what we're doing with Hoodle, is we're showing you how to, and giving you tools and techniques and strategies to become that go-to, to where you can do them over and over and over and over again, where you become the differentiated, massively unique realtor who's providing more value to all the parties, and they see it very quickly. So the fifth number that you need to find is how many realtors specialize in new construction. Here's a very simple way to find this one, okay? Not simple. Here's two ways to find it. One, go look at your MLS and do the search that I told you about. Now, what you're going to want to do when you do this search in your MLS, so you're looking at solds, right? You're looking at solds that are new construction. Most MLSs don't have, some of them do, where you can just click a box and just show me new construction. Generally, you're going to have to search for solds that are 0 years old or less than a year old. And so every MLS is a little bit different. There's 15 or 18 different kinds of MLS software. They all do it a little bit differently, okay? And every market does it a little bit differently. But you're going to want to find out how many new construction solds were there last year. Then when you download this, you want to download it as a spreadsheet. And by the way, if anybody wants help on this, let me know. If you can't find, well, how do I download it as a spreadsheet, or what they call a CSV file, comma separated values. Okay, that's really probably the way you ought to do it. Every MLS offers it, but it's not something that we typically use. Okay, we're not used to doing that. We're used to doing the full sheets. But I don't want 3,000 full sheets, and I don't want you to have to look at 3,000 full sheets. I want a spreadsheet, right? And so you can do this in every MLS. I can show you how to do it. I can help you do it. Let me know if you need help. But when you download this, this is some shocking stuff that you're going to start looking at. When you start diving into this, as we have for many years now, you're going to be walking, you're going to be stepping out of it going, oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. Because the opportunity and the gap in the marketplace it's phenomenal. It will shake you up when you start looking at it. But so that's where you're going to find the number of realtors. Here's another thing you can do that I recommend, okay? When you're going through new home neighborhoods, and I recommend that you do. I mean, look, we need to know, if we're going to specialize in new construction, I better doggone for sure understand what's the inventory. What's the inventory on this? What's the process? Cindy posted a couple days ago a quote that I made recently. I don't remember exactly what it was. I think it's in the group. But if you want to specialize, learn the new construction market, learn the builders, and learn the buyers. And it's not difficult to do, but it takes some focus. And when you do, everybody else falls by the wayside. But here's another thing you can do. You could start driving through new construction neighborhoods. You got this thing on the back of your phone, this little camera. Start taking pictures. Take pictures of the neighborhoods. Take pictures of the entrances of the neighborhood. Take pictures of the builder signs. Why? Because those are builders that you're going to reach out to go in your inventory and to go in your database. Take pictures of the realtor signs. And you probably know a half dozen of them right now. I'm sure you do. You know who the biggies are. Well, I see Linda out there all the time, or I see Sarah out there all the time, or, who are the big realtors, but who are all the realtors? Why do I want to know that? Well, because I better start figuring out what's my real competition when it comes into new construction. Here's what you're going to find out. It becomes very, very small number, very, very fast. Now, I won't go into, if you want to go into more details about, I'm happy to have another session on it, but how do I compete against Sarah or Linda or Lucy or whoever's, really killing it in my market with new construction? That's a whole other class that we'll go through, and I gotta wrap this up pretty quick because I know you guys got stuff to do. But those are the 5 numbers. So The neighborhoods. I want to find out the numbers. How you can find out that? So you're going to go into the MLS and you're going to do a different search now for the neighborhoods. First of all, you're going to search for active residential lots. Active residential lots. Don't care about commercial. We're not building a shopping mall. I want to know the neighborhoods. And the problem is that even that number, so it's going to come back and it's going to say, well, Sarah, there's 1,300 or there's 5,000 residential lots that are on the MLS. That doesn't tell you the neighborhoods, but what we're trying to get to is the neighborhoods, right? We want to know the options on where somebody can build. And by the way, so first of all, we already know, as I said at the top of this conversation, that number, when we filter out the actual number of neighborhoods where somebody can build, not the lots, that probably only represents about 40%, 35, 40%. Let's be generous. Let's say it's 50%. Let's say half of the new home neighborhoods have one or more lots that make it to the MLS. Still, is that an accurate number to be giving out to our consumers? Well, here's half of them, Mrs. Smith. Don't worry about the other half. Let's just pick one of these because that's simple. By the way, guys, this is what gets down to, these are really core level issues that affect the way we are perceived as realtors in new construction when it comes to new construction. If we're not providing this value, which we should, there's not a whole lot of respect on the part of the builder or the buyer or the developer or anybody else. This is a problem that we can solve, that we should solve, because we're adding massive value to this whole space. And instead of, Zillow or whoever else saying, who needs realtors? They're going, wow, look at what the realtors are doing. Look at what these new construction specialists are doing. So we need to know this stuff. But you're going to go into your MLS, you're going to search for active residential lots, okay? And again, what we're pulling out from that is the neighborhoods, not the lot itself. Nobody cares that there's 5,000. We do care, but as a buyer, I want to know my options on the where. And that is not the home site, it is not the lot, it's the neighborhoods. So I'm happy to do a one-on-one, do a strategy call with anybody. I wish that I could show you and walk through and demo, but Facebook Live doesn't let me do that. And I don't have access to any of your MLSs, but if any of you want to do that, we could do a Zoom call. I could show you how to do it. We can walk through it, and you can pull this down for yourself. And you're going to begin talking about your market. You're going to begin sizing up your market and communicating differently to everybody that you talk to. I promise you. I've had, when I started getting a handle on this, we had city planners, I've had economic development, I've had zoning, I've had different government entities that I end up in a meeting with at one point or another. They come to our office or we go to them and they're like, we don't have this number. We don't have this. Think about it. Economic development, city planners, they know the number of neighborhoods in their city. They don't necessarily know the number of neighborhoods or the total number of lots or days on market for all the lots within the metro area. They're concerned about their city, maybe their county, that's it. And so we need to find this out. So to find the neighborhoods, you're going to go to the MLS, you're going to do two searches. You're going to search for active residential lots. You're going to search for homes, active new construction homes that are on the market. And so again, depending on the MLS, it's going to vary the way you do that search. Sometimes it's 0 years. Sometimes there is a box you can check for new construction, and I want you to download that as a spreadsheet. I won't try to explain this, what to do with the spreadsheet on here, because it would make it's too much of a deep dive, but I'll help you. If you need help, I'll help you. So we want to know the neighborhoods. We want to know the number of builders. Here's where you can find the builders real quick. At least an estimate. This is not going to tell you all of them, but it's a good estimate, and it's a good place to start from. And then we'll wrap up. Let me see if I can punch this. I think I can put this in here. Cool. All right. All right. So I just put in the comments a link that if you don't know this link, you ought to find it. You ought to go to it. And so this is a link of all the home builders associations in the United States. You need to find yours, okay? If you're not part of the NAHB, you probably should be, or at least you need to find out about the NAHB. I'll do another session sometime if we get the opportunity about whether to NAHB or not. That's the question. And there are times when you should and times when you shouldn't, but you definitely should have a strategy if you're going to join the NAHB. But you absolutely need to know who are the HBAs, the Home Builders Associations, in my market. And this is a whole other conversation that we don't have time to get into, but on how to connect with them. And on almost all of them, not everyone, but on almost all of them, there's a directory. And on that directory, you can find out the number of builder members that they have. Okay? Here's the thing. If you go into yours, and sometimes in a lot of MLSs, there may be two home builders associations. So there may be multiple, like in Orlando, in Dallas, Fort Worth, there's 2 or 3 of them, that comprise the greater metro area. And so in that case, I'm going to go search each one of them. I'm going to look at their directory, and that directory is going to be very helpful for you for a lot of different reasons. Won't go into all of them today, but here's the first one. How many builder members do they have in their HBA? Now, I've had this conversation with many executive officers around the country. The EO, the executive officer, is the person who's hired to manage the HBA. And I've had the conversation many times when I'd say to the EO, how many builders are there in our market, in your market? And generally what they say is, well, we've got 110 members. That number is not the accurate number. And most of the time they don't know either. Are you starting to get an idea that if you get some semblance of what the real numbers are, how you're going to speak differently, you're going to be perceived differently, you're going to provide different value, and you're going to approach the market way, way different than the way you were before? Because your target audience of builders that you want to work with, or developers you want to work with, or neighborhoods that you want to sell, and buyers you want to go after, it's way different than what you're expecting. Way bigger, okay? But here's the number to be aware of. And by the way, I'll give you another link here too in just a second, where you can, if you really want to dive deep into this, we've done, I've got 8 hours of video on it. That I think it's about 8 hours of video just on how to start your foundation of your new construction market. And I don't think anybody else is teaching this stuff, and it's something that you need to learn if you want to do new construction, because it'll make all the difference in your paychecks and your number, where you begin to partner with builders and developers. But here's the number that you need to know about the HBA. Link is in the directory is in the comments below. Go find yours. Reach out to me. Tell me you found it. Tell me how many builders there are if you have any problem. But here's the number that you need to be aware of. In most markets, if I talk to NAHB, and if I talk to the EOs of the different HBAs, and I say, what percentage of builders, and this is kind of they shared it with me, I didn't share it with them, but the leaders of NAHB will say generally only 10 to 15% of the builders, 10 to 15% of the actual builders in your market ever join up with the local HBA. So, what's that equation then, Sarah, or Lucy, or Linda? If I go to the directory and it looks like there's 100 builders that are part of the HBA, what would that be? 100 divided by 0.10, I think. And it tells you that if there's 10% that join up with the HBA, or do it by 15%, 100 divided by 0.15 equals, and that is the accurate number or accurate estimate of how many builders are actually in your market. This is huge, because when you get that, you start to go, oh, shoot. That means there's a lot more opportunity on options for the buyer. That means there's a lot more builders that I should know about. Doesn't mean you're going to know all 1,400 of them, but there's a lot more options of builders and developers that I could potentially list with or partner with. And ultimately, that's what I'm recommending to you. is, and what I teach realtors how to do, and what we're doing with Hoodle is, it's not just about getting a transaction. Every realtor can do that once a year. You know, how do you partner with the builder and with the developer? How do you become the true guide and the fiduciary in your market and become the go-to new construction expert that everybody is going, you want to do new? Go talk to Sarah. Sarah has information, she shared with us information that none of the other realtors have. It's not that hard to do. And so you're going to go look at your HBA to find out the number of builders, and then you're going to do the equation. You know, if it's 100 divided by 0.15, right? Jim, hey, Jim, I see you. From Houston. Great to see you, Jim. So, number of neighborhoods, number of builders, number of buyers. On that one, go look at the U.S. I'll find the link and I'll post it in here. I apologize, I did not open that up before we jumped into this, but I can promise you it's a pain in the rear, and to find that, but it's findable, and I've got to update it, so I'll just update it for the whole country, and then message me, and I'll be glad to put together a chart for your local market. Then I want to find out the number of realtors. That's easy to find. And ultimately, I want to find the number of realtors who specialize in new construction. So, are you tired yet? Those are the 5 numbers that if I were starting a new construction today, I would want to find those things out as quickly as possible. That's not the end game. That's just where you begin, okay? Is to understand pretty clearly, or at least way more clearly than the realtors, the bros. I tell you what, when we started getting into this and we started meeting with builders, we found out builders don't even know. Builders don't know. And that's not the only way to find out all the builders or all the neighborhoods. That's, we just had the conversation with our affiliate realtors with Hoodle last week. We'll probably talk about it again tomorrow about, well, how do I find these builders? There's like 13 different ways to find out who all the builders are in your market. You're never going to meet all of them. But absolutely, if you want to specialize, if you want to start like leaving everybody else in the dust, leaving them in your wake, okay, this is where we're going, okay? This is about becoming the go-to realtor for when it comes to new home building. It's not difficult, takes a little bit of research, but I'm giving you the goods here, guys. I don't think anybody else is teaching this. There is another link. Let me find you this here. Here's another link that you ought to check out. If you haven't already, really, really recommend this, okay? If I can post it, is it going to work? Okay. All right, so when we started to get into this, and when we created Hoodle, so I just posted another link in there, and we started getting invited to come speak to HBAs, and brokerages and others and many, many others. And they were going, this is a problem in every city. It's a problem in every place. And we started to chart what are the biggest problems that new construction buyers have. And we really deep dived into that. What stops people from building a house when they really, really, really want to? That's a whole other talk. And out of that research, and we even put together research groups to go out and research new construction buyers. Out of that research, this was where this document came out of. And so we really chronicled 7 big reasons why somebody pulls back when they really want to build and they don't do it, okay? And there's a little free ebook there that you can download. Grab a copy of that. Don't just read the ebook because it's pretty short and I need to update it now, but go watch the videos that go with it. There's 7 videos that talk about, well, how does this apply to me as a realtor? How can I be the differentiator in my market? How can I provide value to this one problem? And you pick 1 or 2 of these things and you start adding value, very quickly you leave everybody else in the dust. Very quickly you become the go-to that everybody's referring to. Oh yeah, talk to Jim. Jim's got the goods on this. Yeah, Jim's done the research. He's providing value that nobody else is providing. And so download that ebook, watch the videos. Now, once you get past the video the ebook, there's another page and there's a premium, It's super, super dirt cheap. I'd be charging a lot more for it, but it's like 8 hours of training that goes into all of this stuff that we're talking about in a lot more detail. Here's the links. Here's here's exactly what you're going to look for and all these things. So, guys, that's what I got for today. I hope that you're having an amazing week so far. It's only Tuesday. Is it Wednesday? It's Wednesday. It's time to rock and roll, okay? And I'm going to start coming in every Wednesday at 9:30 at Central Standard Time and doing a little training here. Try to provide you guys some value. If you want to have a strategy call about your market, ping me. Just ping me. I'll give you a calendar link. We can hop on the phone and have a quick call, specifically talk about what's going on in your market. It doesn't matter how much experience you have. That is not the key indicator to success in new construction. It does not matter whether you know how to build a house. It doesn't matter if you know the process, if you know the builders, if you know the neighbors, none of it. Because the opportunity is wide stinking open. Yes, I said wide stinking open. Sorry to get crass here, okay? But it's wide open for any realtor that wants to, dive into this and say, you know what, there's not enough value that's being provided by the other realtors. I want to become that gal. I want to become that guy. I want to become the person who is the guide and the fiduciary that's providing massively more value than the other 10,000 realtors in the market. You can do it. I can show you how. We can even empower you to do that even better. So, guys, that's what I got. Hope you have an amazing day, and reach out, but be sure to take one piece of this and implement it. Don't wait till you know everything. Just start. Just start. Take imperfect next action, and you won't believe how fast they start building on each other, and you start walking and talking and having confidence and knowledge different than all the other realtors when it comes to new construction. So God bless. Hope you have an amazing rest of the week, and let me know how I can help. We'll talk to you later. Bye.